and here's what I want to say. What you're seeing happening today, obviously we have some black people that are just shouting in the back. We have some black people that are sitting in the front quietly that are chanting USA and having a normal conversation. I love that because what I say every single time, and you may have seen me on the news, is that what is happening right now in the black community, you're going to hear it in this room first. There is an ideological civil war happening. Black people that are focused on their past and shouting about slavery, and black people that are focused on their futures, okay? That's really what it comes down to, okay? I can guarantee you what you're seeing happening is victim mentality versus victor mentality. And
That's
I promise
great, by
you,
the way.
the people here are going to win.
I love that.
And there's no doubt in my mind. I can tell you right now who is going to be better off. When we look 20 years and we look at the faces in this room, who is going to be better off are the girls that are sitting right here and across this room because they don't have your mentality. Victim mentality is not cool. I don't know why people like being oppressed. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love oppression. We're oppressed. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, which, by the way, none of you guys lived through. Your grandparents did, and it's embarrassing that you utilize their history. You utilize their history, and you come in here with more emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. More emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. It's embarrassing. You're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans. It's what's going on right now. Over here shouting, and I want to say some more. I'm not done. Over here shouting and booing the officers. That's a black officer in the back right there. Are you aware
Thank you for your
that
service,
there are
man.
black officers in the world? In District 11 in Chicago, where more black people... In District 11 in Chicago, where more black people have been gunned down than any place in America, which I went to go visit and speak to those cops, they are all black. When you launch a war on cops, you are launching a war on black men as well. I'm so ashamed of the way you guys are acting and the fact that you love being oppressed. I don't get it, and I'm going to tell you, you're not going to ever make me think that oppression is cool. You're never going to make me think oppression is cool. Okay, I have no idea what you said, but I'm just telling you, oppression is never going to be, it's never going to come in. It's a poor fad. It's not cool. It's just not cool, man. Like, I will say this, I've yet to meet an Asian American that walks around talking about the internment camps, and yet you will always find a black person talking about slavery, right? It's immediately. It's immediately. So what it comes down to is the fact, exactly what you said, is they have embraced a victor mentality. They don't go around seeing themselves like victims, asking for handouts and sympathy. They get to work, and they are the hardest working people in this country, which is why they are at the top of it. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Just so we're clear, the black single motherhood rate has jumped 72% since the 1960s. Not a single person here, if you're in the realm of sanity, is going to tell me that America is a more racist country today than it was 60 years ago. So you're going to have to explain to me why black Americans are worse off today than they were 60 years ago. Why my grandfather who is still alive, was able to work himself. So the first thing is that you have to understand, when we walk in here, we're booed, we're shouted at. We've got girl fake reading a book, right? Standing over here, yelling at us, okay? So, yeah, right. So you have to understand, it's impossible to have a conversation when all we're here is to talk about our ideas, and people are so triggered by the idea that we don't agree with them. They don't want to have a discussion. Nobody has asked me my background. I come from the exact same background as you, okay? So the idea... Wait. Okay. Thank you for proving my point. But do you see what I'm talking about? So it's impossible for you and I to have a dialogue when they don't even forget not respecting me. They think that I haven't even said what my ideas are, and they feel oppressed. It's impossible for them to even let you speak because they're so angry, and that's what the problem is. There is no dialogue because you have people, as I say, that don't know how to act civilized. It's what it comes down to, and I don't respect that at all. I don't vibe with it. I don't respect it. I don't care about it. It's not bullying me into thinking that this is the cool corner. Honestly, like I said, I think that you guys represent a brand of thinking oppression is cool. You think that you want to play the oppression Olympics and be the person that's, the least able to do something in this country. And at the end of the day, the person that's going to get ahead is the person that's willing to have a dialogue. That's it. I'm obviously a conservative. I didn't start as a conservative. I wasn't even a conservative 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I actually believed that Black Lives Matter was a good group. I shared their posts, and I said, this makes sense. They do. They do. Sorry, I want to stand up because I really want to be able to see Mandy. So that's where I started. That was my threshold. I grew up in a household that was largely dysfunctional. I grew up visiting my uncles in prison for various reasons. My parents are not together. They are divorced. And every single one of my mom's brothers and sisters, she's one of 9, has served some time in prison. So that was my normal growing up. And when I got out of high school, I had this idea that because I was black, I must be a Democrat, because anything else is oppression. Anything else is people that are white supremacists, are racist, are sexist, the same thing that you're seeing happening in the news every single day. What I ended up discovering, I was actually, after spending, I had $100,000 in student loan debt, and I didn't finish with a degree because my loan got declined in my senior year, and my family just couldn't afford it to put me through school. So what I ended up doing was keeping my head under the ground and working really hard in New York until I could pay down my student loans, and I wanted to launch a company. When I started working on that piece of technology, it was early 2016. And what I discovered while doing that was that the Democrats were spending money, that they were launching a campaign on Twitter where they were pretending that they were real Twitter accounts. So let's say you work for Black Lives Matter, but I'm a troll account, but I put in my heading that I support Trump 45, right? And I'm so-and-so from Mississippi with 2 kids. They were troll accounts that were being run by white liberals, and they would go to the Black Lives Matter chapter and they would say, die, 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 nigger, or they would find a woman and they'd say, I'm going to rape you and kill you. So that was my aha moment where I realized that racism was actually a theme that was meant to keep black people enslaved, right? I realized, wait a second, people that are pretending to protect us are actually creating and perpetuating. It wasn't Russian bots. It was a funded. Okay, yeah, sorry. You're right. Okay, you're right. Okay. You're right. So when I understood that, yeah. Okay. So Mandy, just to get back to the point and focus the discussion, and I would appreciate if no one shouted. When I realized that I saw that these accounts were fake and that they were going around attacking black people to create this narrative that Trump was a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, it was my aha moment. So I started to question everything and say, wow, how many times have I so easily bought into the idea that something was racist before examining anything? So as I started the pursuit of knowledge, which was going to things I would never read, Breitbart, I thought that was a white nationalist publication. My Bible was CNN. At the time when I was reading this, the main editor was Milo Yiannopoulos, and if you Google him, it will tell you that he is a white supremacist. For those of you that don't know this, he's married to a black man.
He's married to a black dude.
He's married to a black man. Okay. So Mandy, just to stay with me because they're going to do what they're going to do. That's a very weird thing to call somebody a white supremacist that is married to a black man. He's gay and he's married to a black man. So at the end of the day, I had to say, Now, they could have called him a lot of things. They could have said they disagree with his ideas. They could have said this or that, but they were sticking this label so that I would never read what he was saying or what he was doing. As I journeyed on and kept seeing that, I saw this everywhere, and I started to understand the publications that I once trusted, like the Washington Post and CNN, were lying about people that were just trying to come out and speak about different ideas, okay? It's the exact same thing now that Charlie Kirk's brand has grown. If you read anything about him, it tells you he's a white supremacist. I just had an article written about me yesterday. Now that you know my background and where I came up, in the environment that I came up in, calling me a white supremacist, which is it's insane to me that they would even do that. So to me, the ideas of racism and white supremacy are being used to block black people out of ideas that could potentially benefit them. Okay, and those ideas are that we do not need the government. Black people do not need the government to do anything. We keep accepting government handouts and government dependency, but at the end of the day, they're creating a narrative because they never, ever, ever want us to get off of it. So you're exactly right. Black people disproportionately commit the crimes in this country. That's a fact, and it's going to trigger this crowd over here. It's a fact. Okay, we're 13% of the population, and we're committing essentially more than the majority of the murders that are happening in this country. Okay, so at the end of the day, if the black people that are in jail, whoever said 1 in 3 black people serve some prison sentence, they're not serving a prison sentence for being black. I'll tell you that much. Okay. No, you're not going into prison saying that you are spending time for being black. That is ridiculous. You have to commit a crime to serve jail time. You're right. So what we are fighting and why we come to these college campuses is that the extreme left is starting to have some major wins on campus, right? When you go around and you start calling everybody white supremacists and argue to get Turning Point chapters shut down and say that people cannot be conservatives and that somebody chanting USA is a racist, okay? We have to point that out to have a larger conversation about what's going on in this country, because the truth is, okay, when you use words like racist and sexist and misogynist over and over and over again, they lose their meaning. And that's the biggest problem that I have with it, is that nobody takes black people seriously anymore when we call something racist. That's a problem. We have to start injecting a more normal conversation into college campuses to win back that conversation that we should be having. Are there racists? Absolutely. But I can't think of a single thing during Donald Trump's term in office that he's actually done that has been racist.
Trump finger to the press, right? And then next to him is Barack Obama sitting straight up, looking into the distance. It looks like he's got a ramrod straight up his ass. And you can almost see the steel behind his eyes. It's that far up. But the capper to the photo, it's the greatest thing in the world. The capper to the photo is in the background on Obama's left, is a bust of Abraham Lincoln going like this. And it's just great because it says everything about this election. But the idea that Obama, who considers himself this wonderful guy, but was really just a celebrity, right? He was just a celebrity reality TV star being faced with the actuality that he's going to be replaced by another reality TV star who he was joking about on Jimmy Kimmel like 3 years ago, saying he'll never be president. It's pretty spectacular. So we can at least be entertained. But on January 21st, we'll actually know what this looks like. I'm eager to get there because I want to know whether I was right or wrong about Trump. I hope I was wrong. I was wrong about his electability, obviously. So I hope that I'm also wrong about him as a president. I pray that I'm wrong about him as a president, or it's going to be a long 4 years.
Mr. Shapiro, as you may or may not know, last year, 80 Silicon Valley executives sent a letter to North Carolina expressing their strong discontent for their transgender segregation bathrooms or whatever. Basically, boys go to boys' bathrooms.
Yes.
Girls go to, so for those of us that are going into tech or the private industries, how do we push for a global economy, or I guess at this point, an American economy that's more conservative and actually has the values that we would like to work for?
Yeah, I mean, power and money are the name of the game. And this is why I say you have to make choices knowing the industry that you're going into, how much you're willing to compromise your own values in order to go into that industry and become successful. You know, I'm lucky enough that I get to be in an industry where my legitimate job is just speaking my mind every day, which is a pretty wonderful thing. But most people don't. I mean, my mom works in Hollywood. That means that she doesn't get to talk politics at the office, and it means that she has to kind of keep her mouth shut when it comes to issues like this. In the end, the people who have the money and the firing power are the ones who are going to be able to determine the future. It's also worthwhile noting, by the way, that conservatives ought to start using their marketing power in the way that the left has used their market power. So the left tries to boycott North Carolina, right, as you mentioned, because they don't like the policy. Well, conservatives should boycott those companies, right? But conservatives should say, well, if you're going to discriminate against North Carolina, we're not shopping with you. Right? If you're going to say to Brendan Eich, the CEO of Mozilla Firefox, that he has to be fired because he supports traditional marriage, then we should say, okay, no one's going to download Mozilla Firefox, and you're going to take a hit in your stock price. That's actually happening now with Grubhub, right? The Grubhub CEO said that he was going to discriminate against Trump employees, people who voted for Trump and were employees, and the stock price has dropped like $6 in the last 72 hours. The NFL, I think, is taking a major hit specifically because of this. I think Colin Kaepernick and the Black Lives Matter movement, it's turned off an entire audience. People who used to think, it's a Sunday, I'm just going to turn on the TV and watch a football game, they think, I don't want to lecture on how America's racist and awful, or Bob Costas telling me about gun control. Screw it. I'll just watch a rerun of the Dick Van Dyke Show or something. So Americans, conservatives need to start using their power in the market as well. Hi, Ben. Howdy. You make me feel really underdressed.
I think this ideology of, social justice and victimhood ultimately is Marxism.
Yes.
And as someone who came from Venezuela escaping communism, you can imagine the terror that I feel, when I see the state of the media and academia, and given the Democratic nomination, also politics. So my question to you is, why does Marxism refuse to die?
Marxism refuses to die because Marxism gives people utopia to